I told her, I said, the proof is in the pudding. Let's go get the DNA.
So this is the DNA test, and it says the probability of relatedness is 96.7%.
That's my granddaughter. If she's nothing else, she's my granddaughter.
Y'all, we need to talk about the scandal that refuses to die. The family secret that's been haunting Hollywood for 4 decades. The one that just exploded back into headlines. Because James DeBarge is spilling tea so hot, it might burn down the entire Jackson dynasty. Y'all ready for this? Because we're about to dive into the mystery of Janet Jackson's alleged secret baby. And honey, the receipts are piling up. Picture this, it's 1984. Janet Jackson is just 18 years old.
Well, it's all of my records have been autobiographical. They're my diaries.
Right.
So what's going on in my life at that moment has been that album, like Velvet Rope or Control or the Janet album, and so on.
Baby-faced, fresh off her family's variety show, the youngest member of the Jackson dynasty, trying to step out of her brother's shadows. And what does she do? She runs off and marries James DeBarge, a man her family warned her about, a man with demons so deep he couldn't even show up to his own wedding rehearsal. But that's not the shocking part. The real tea is what happened 9 months later, when Janet suddenly disappeared, when her weight started fluctuating.
We had a studio at home growing up, and whatever time of night, day, couldn't sleep at night, you'd go in the studio and you'd just create music, put something down if you had an idea. And I remember I had written my first song when I was 9 years old.
When people started whispering, "Is she pregnant?" And get this, James DeBarge just dropped a bombshell that's got everybody's jaw on the floor. He says, "I know we had a child. I just don't know where that child is." But wait, it gets messier, because this ain't just some scorned ex making wild claims. Oh no, James has been saying this for 40 years. He wrote letters from prison about it. He told Michael Jackson's personal doctor. He's been screaming into the void, "Where is my baby?" Let me break down this timeline for you, because it's crucial.
How would you position it?
I think my father means well. I think he means well and wants nothing but the best for his kids. I just think that the way he went about certain things wasn't the best way.
September 7th, 1984. Janet and James elope in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She's 18, he's 21. Her family is furious. Joe Jackson is reportedly losing his mind because his baby girl just married into the DeBarge family, a family known for their musical talent and their struggles with addiction. Now here's where things get interesting. Within weeks of the marriage, people start noticing Janet's appearance changing. She's gaining weight. Her face is fuller. She's wearing looser clothing.
But it got the job done. And that's because of maybe how he was raised, doing what he thought was best, not knowing any better.
And this is 1984, y'all, before the era of body positivity. Back then, any weight gain on a female celebrity was scrutinized to death. But it wasn't just a weight gain. By December 1984, the rumors are rampant. Janet shows up to public events looking different. There's this infamous story about the American Music Awards where multiple witnesses claim she looked visibly pregnant. We're talking 5, maybe 6 months along. But here's where it gets real interesting.
I was about to shoot an episode of Different Strokes, and I remember telling my instructor that, my teacher, and he got a little too close to me, and I felt very, very uncomfortable.
The entire DeBarge family backs James up. Every single one. His sister Bunny DeBarge, who was close to Janet at the time, says she saw Janet pregnant with her own 2 eyes. She's gone on record saying, "I remember Janet being pregnant, and I remember her suddenly not being pregnant, and I remember there was no baby." Let that sink in. His brother, young DeBarge, says there was definitely a baby. He claims the family was preparing for the arrival. They were excited. They were making plans.
With this project, which is still work in progress, it's just been a fun process, and it's been different for me because I have my son now, so that's been a completely different.
It's like a different writing perspective.
Yeah, and there's some other stuff.
And then nothing. No explanation. Baby. Just silence. But here's the kicker. Even James's daughter. Y'all hear me? His daughter, Christina, is out here saying, I believe I have a secret sister somewhere. She's done interviews. She's posted on social media. She's convinced her father isn't lying. Now, why would his own child say that unless she knows something we don't? Let's talk about what marriage to James DeBarge was really like. Janet has admitted that she spent most of their brief marriage trying to keep James clean. She was flushing his drugs down the toilet.
I was performing for the Queen of England, and we were doing We're the Nation. As soon as I squatted, my pants split right in my crack. I mean, badly.
She was dragging him out of crack houses. She was playing nurse, therapist, and wife, all at 18 years old. The stress must have been unimaginable. By January 1985, just 4 months after their wedding, Janet files for an annulment. She cites fraud as the reason. Now, legally, that could mean anything, but the timing, it's suspicious. If she was pregnant, she would have been in her second trimester right around this time. And then she vanishes. From January to May 1985, Janet Jackson essentially disappears from public life. No performances, no appearances, no interviews. For someone from the most famous family in entertainment, that's basically impossible. Unless you have something to hide. But when she came back, everything had changed. When she resurfaces in mid-1985, she's slim again. She's ready to launch her solo career. And she acts like nothing ever happened. But the streets were talking, and they've never stopped. Now, let's examine Janet's side of the story. In her 2022 documentary, she finally addressed these rumors. Her explanation, she gained weight from birth control pills while filming Fame. She says people just assumed she was pregnant because of the weight gain. Simple as that. But here's what doesn't add up. First of all, the timeline is off. She was filming Fame after her marriage to James ended. So why would she be on birth control during their marriage if she was already gaining weight? And it gets even more suspicious. Second, multiple people, including industry insiders, claim they saw her with a pronounced baby bump. Not just weight gain, we're talking about people who know the difference. But the most telling part? She never actually says the words, "I never had a baby." She talks around it, says it would be wrong to keep a child from its father, but she never flat out denies giving birth. That's lawyer speak, y'all. That's careful wording designed to not technically lie while not telling the whole truth. Now let's talk about the bombshell that almost solved everything. In 2017, a woman named Tiffany White came forward claiming she was Janet and James's daughter. She had a compelling story. She was the right age. She even looked like she could be related to both families. James was convinced she was his long-lost child. The entire DeBarge family was ready to embrace her. His mother, Ederline DeBarge, was so sure that she agreed to take a DNA test. The whole family was ready to welcome Tiffany with open arms. They were planning reunions. They were talking to the media. They were certain this mystery was finally solved. Then the results came back and shocked everyone. Negative. Tiffany wasn't James's daughter. She wasn't Janet's daughter. She wasn't related to either family at all. You'd think this would end the speculation, right? But here's what's fascinating. Even after that DNA test proved Tiffany wasn't his daughter, James still insists his child is out there. He's not backing down. He's not changing his story. He's as convinced today as he was 40 years ago. And that raises the million-dollar question. If he's so sure they had a child, why hasn't Janet just taken a DNA test to prove him wrong? Why not end this speculation once and for all? Unless she can't. Let's dig into the conspiracy theories because, honey, they are wild. Theory number 1. The child was given to another Jackson family member to raise. Some people believe Rebby Jackson, Janet's oldest sister, suddenly having a baby around this time is suspicious. But wait, there's more. Theory number 2. The child was placed for adoption through ultra-private channels available only to the super rich. We're talking about closed adoptions with sealed records, new identities, the works. And then there's the heartbreaking possibility. Theory number 3. The pregnancy ended in tragedy, either miscarriage or stillbirth. And the family covered it up to protect Janet's mental health and budding career. But the darkest theory of all, theory number 4, Janet was forced to give up the baby against her will. Remember, she was only 18. She was under her father's iron control. Joe Jackson was notorious for putting the family business above everything else. And speaking of the Jackson family's response, you'd think with such a massive accusation hanging over their daughter's head for 40 years, they'd come out swinging. They'd sue for defamation. They'd present medical records. But instead, total silence. The only time any Jackson has addressed it was when Randy Jackson made a vague statement about it being family business. That's it. No lawsuits, no cease and desist letters, just silence. And in Hollywood, silence often speaks volumes. Now let's talk about what was at stake. This was 1985. The Jackson family image was everything. Janet was being groomed as the next big solo star. She had just signed a massive record deal. Having a baby with a man battling addiction, that could have derailed everything. So ask yourself this: what would Joe Jackson have done to protect the family empire? What would the record label have demanded to protect their investment? What would an 18-year-old girl do when faced with that kind of pressure? The timing of Janet's breakthrough is suspicious too. Control was released in February 1986, almost exactly 1 year after she allegedly gave birth. The album's themes: independence, breaking free from family control, making her own decisions. Almost like she was processing trauma through her music. But here's what really convinced me something's not right. In every interview where James talks about this alleged child, he's not angry. He's not vindictive. He's sad. He talks about feeling robbed of the chance to be a father. He says he still loves Janet and doesn't want to hurt her. That's not the behavior of a liar. That's the behavior of a grieving father. And his daughter, Christina, has been relentless in her search for answers. She's created social media campaigns. She's offered to take DNA tests with anyone who might be the missing sibling. Why would she go to these lengths if there wasn't something to this story? Meanwhile, Janet's story has evolved. First, she didn't address it at all. Then she blamed weight gain. Then she blamed birth control. Then she got emotional, but still didn't directly deny it. The inconsistencies are glaring. And in the age of DNA testing, family secrets are harder to keep than ever. We've seen countless stories of people discovering their true parentage through 23andMe or Ancestry.com. If there's a Jackson DeBarge child out there, it's only a matter of time before technology reveals the truth. Maybe that's why Janet finally addressed it in her documentary. Maybe she knows the clock is ticking on this secret. Or maybe, just maybe, she's tired of this burden. Because let's be real, if this child exists, Janet's not the villain here. She was a teenager, possibly forced to make an impossible choice. The real question should be directed at the adults who were supposed to protect her. So, where does this leave us? We have 40 years of consistent testimony from the DeBarge family. We have suspicious timing. We have a notable lack of firm denial. We have body language that suggests deception. We have a grieving father who's never wavered. And somewhere out there, we might have a person in their late 30s who has no idea they're pop royalty. Can you imagine living your whole life not knowing your mother is Janet Jackson? The thought alone is staggering. As we close out this deep dive, I want you to really think about what we've uncovered. This isn't just gossip. This is potentially a human being's entire identity we're talking about. And mark my words, the truth will come out. It always does. And when it does, child, the tea that will be spilled might just flood all of Hollywood. Until next time, keep your eyes open, because in this industry, nothing is ever quite what it seems. And sometimes, the wildest conspiracies turn out to be true. Peace out, y'all. And remember, somewhere out there, someone might be living a lie they don't even know about. And that's the real scandal.